All right, welcome back. So things are going pretty well. We're pushing post. We are displaying post. The thing that we're really missing is we're missing things for the author, for who wrote this post. Now we happen to know that you're signed in as one person and you wrote this post, and you could just like put your picture on all of them and your name on all of them, but that'd be kind of ridiculous, right? Because we want to know like who made it. And if we're signed in, we only know our picture right now, and we only know our display name. And so we need to save into Firebase the person who made its information. And so what we want to do is we want to have data. So a field like we have post here, we want to have a field called authors. And authors, instead of having an auto-generated key, it'll be by UID. And then inside there, we'll save the display name and the photo URL. And then that way we can look up, because here we save the author key, we can look up what's the display name and photo URL for the person who made it. So in order to get started, what we're going to do is we're going to organize things into a service again. So we've got kind of like a couple services going on. We're going to make an author service. So come over here, and you might need to switch back into your services folder, and then you can ngg another service for authors. And so it made the author service, and it said it did not provide it yet. So that's an easy one to fix. So we come down here to our providers, we add an author service, spell it correctly and it should auto import for you. Put a trailing comma, of course. And so our author service is going to have some things in common with our post service. I guess the trick I should use in Visual Code Studio more that I don't is putting things side by side. I don't know why, I just kind of never do. But you can see that it's going to have things like a path. So it's going to have an author path. I guess I should call authors plural. So authors is going to be the path that he's on. He's likely going to have an author's stream, but I'm going to wait till I need it until I do it. So just going to wait for a little bit on the stream. But one thing he is going to need is he's going to need a way to add new authors, and he's going to need to be able to update authors. Interestingly, it's not the same kind of list that post was. So like post, like it just might get indefinitely long and grow and grow and grow. But really with authors, it's kind of like, when a person signs in, you put them into their spot, right? So it's a little bit different. So the capability that I really need is I need a way to update an author. So I guess my 2 panes up was really not even that useful. And so in order to update an author, there's some pieces of information that you're going to need. So you're going to need to know what is the key. So like where do you want to put them? And then you're also going to need to know the display name, which is a string. And you're going to need to know the photo URL, which is a string. Now these last 2 fields are actually the same 2 fields that an author object has. So you could just say author key and then an author object. If you want to structure it that way, that's fine. I'm going to do it this way, and what I'm going to do is on this side, I'm going to make the actual author object. You could totally do it the other way. You could have the other side make an author object and pass in the author object, but I'm going to do it this way. It auto-completed the author service there, which I didn't want. I actually wanted to bring in the author model object. And the model object receives a display name, which we've kind of confusingly enough called display name, and a photo URL, which we've called photo URL. Oops, and it's yelling at me because my parentheses are wrong. So this is the object that I'm passing into the constructor. I had my parentheses off there. And then what we're going to do is from here, we're going to push it on up. And the way that we're going to push it on up, again, you've kind of got your different options of how you want to do it. I will use the Firebase Angular Fire database, and we'll show you how we're going to use that. Obviously, we could use the regular Firebase. It's too many options, right? Let's just kind of do it together. So we'll say this.db object this time. So instead of like a list of all the authors, we're just going to do a single object to this one location. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use backticks. So I like to use backticks whenever I want to use string interpolation. And I'm going to shoot this into just the right spot. So I'm going to say this dot author's path slash and then author key. And that's where I want this this thing to go, and I'm going to say set author. Cool. So there it is, shooting the author up into that right location. And our author here should have a display name and a photo URL. Oh, by the way, I don't think this matters, but I went back in my model objects and I realized that a Firebase flat snapshot, I kind of like for it to say question mark there. So I went ahead and did that. So this is an author which has no $key. And then this is a way where we can just shoot him right into place using the Angular Fire database, since we know the exact path that he's going to be on. So it's a nice little trick when you know the exact path something's going to be on. So now the question is, we've got this method, and it's going to shoot authors into the database. Now, when do we want to put them into the database? Obviously, we could put them in there when they make a post. That would be just fine. Then just every time they make a post, we shoot them up in there. We can be a little sneakier than that, though, and we could just, whenever they sign in, we'll just add them to our database just right away. And then maybe they'll make a post, maybe they won't, but we'll have them in the database either way. And that's what we're going to do. So we want to call this function at the moment they finish sign in. So the moment they finish sign in happens over in the auth service. It happens at this moment right here. So we'll navigate them over to the main route. And then right here, what I want to do is I want to push them into the database. So let's just do a little log. I want to say push the user to the database. And what I want to make sure is I want to make sure I've got good data. And I actually, so back when I made this video, it was a little while ago, I said that I think that the thing that gets passed in this promise is a user, a Firebase user. It's actually not. It's actually something called a result, which I'll just say is an any. The user, so we'll just go ahead and grab the user here, is actually inside the result. So it's result.user. And so this user is a Firebase.user. And so it worked out lucky for me last time that I didn't actually use that parameter, because it was not what I thought it was. It was actually a result which has a user inside of it. So let's go see if this prints the information that we want. And then if it does, then we'll call that method. So the idea is that that thing only prints when you sign in. So I'm going to have to sign out and then sign back in just to get that to print. It says user's not signed in. And then it says push the user to the database. That's the message I'm looking for. And if we come in here, we can see that push the user to the database. Sure enough, it's got a display name right there. And then it's got a photo URL right there. So it's got the pieces that we want in there now. So now what I can do is I can actually do, I got to do dependency injection first because I'm doing services. So we'll say private author service. It really is pretty comical how many, oops, that should be a lowercase a there, how many similar names we have in our services. So we've got the author service, the auth service, and the auth guard, but they're all completely different and they all do their independent things, right? So what I want to do here is I want to say this dot author service dot update author. Now I've got to see if I've got all those pieces of information I need. So we needed the key. So the key is called the UID, so it should be down here. Yep, got a UID, so it's just going to be user.uid. And then the next thing we needed was the display name, so it's user.displayname. And then user.photo URL. Phone number is also an option, that's exciting. But that one is not always populated. Cool, and so push the user to the database at the moment they sign in, and hopefully it should all work. So we're just telling the service to take care of it, and we've made that function already. So if we come over here, we can see that we don't have any authors yet. But if we sign out and then sign in, so I'll sign in as Dave Fisher, you can see that over my database, I now have a David Fisher, which is kind of neat. And then just because I've got multiple accounts, I could sign out and I could sign in with a fake account, right? So I'm also Rolls Holman Fisher, right, which is a different person.
So they both say Dave Fisher. Maybe that was more confusing than it was worth. I could sign in as McKinley Fisher, which is my daughter, and she loves this app as well. And now I've got a McKinley Fisher. And so even though they haven't made post, they've actually got display names and photo URLs saved to the database. It's saved before we really need it, but that's okay. Cool. Other things we could do is we could actually credit one of these posts to them because we have access to modify the database. And really all the post does is it just connects by saying an author key right here. In fact, you could put a fake UID in here. Go ahead and do this. This will be good. So go ahead and say, hey, this one was made by fake UID. And then in the authors, go ahead and make somebody with a fake UID. And go ahead and give them a display name of, we'll just call them Mrs. Fake, and a photo URL. I like to do things like this because it proves I really know how my database works. And let's just go grab a picture. I just went and grabbed a smiley face here. And so now I've got a fake UID in here. And once it all works, it's going to say Mrs. Fake and display a picture. Right now, all it does is it says fake UID was on the first post. You could put her on a number of posts. Let's go ahead and put her on another one here. So fake UID. And so now she's the author of a couple different posts. And once we get the rest of the app working, it's going to actually show fake UID in the right places. So I think we'll go ahead and cut this video off now because we're pushing authors up to the database because our next step is going to be kind of a big one, and I don't want to start that big step just yet. So here we've got our author service, and then we're pushing our author service in. It looks like there needs to be an auto format done of that guy. And it's just got a nice simple update author, which so this is push authors to the database. Actually, push isn't really quite the right word. Maybe it's like set author objects in the database. Cool. All right. So I think next time what we want to do is we've got all the data in the database now. We've got authors, we've got post, and we know which author did it. What we really need to do next time, though, is we need to kind of stitch that information together. And it'll be kind of a bigger process for doing that. Also, I want to get signed back in as just David Fisher. And by the way, you'll notice that it does actually push the user to the database again. So it's actually called again, so it pushed me up there again. But if there's no change, Firebase handles things like that very gracefully, and there's really not an efficiency concern. All right, so come back next time where we start talking about stitching posts and authors together. See you then. Bye.